Hi, I'm Joe Butt, and you're watching Joe Butt TV. I have a special guest today. A dear friend, a business coach, an entrepreneur, somebody who has helped numerous dentists in the UK over the years to help different phases of their professional life. He doesn't need much of an introduction, so let me say hello right now to Chris Barrow.
Thank
Chris,
you. Joe, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
it's a pleasure to have you here, buddy.
Thank you.
Chris, you don't need much introduction pretty much in the UK. But this video obviously goes out internationally.
Yeah.
So just in a nutshell, what do you do for a living?
It's a great question. The answer to that question is that I work with dentists, helping them to generate more profit in less time with happier people. That's the strap line.
Yep.
To give you a little bit more background to that, this is year 21 full-time in
Wow.
dentistry.
Yeah.
So after a 25-year career in financial services, interestingly, on the 1st of January 1997,
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to go full-time working as a dental consultant, dental coach to originally UK dentists. But dentistry has been very kind to me over those years, and I've ended up working with a lot of dentists overseas as well. And so my life is lived in a suitcase.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time travelling around the UK, around Ireland, and nowadays also working overseas as well. Working with dental practice owners, working with senior management teams, and working with the whole team on an absolute variety of business improvement services. That's my job.
Fantastic. No, I've experienced that in first hand. Plus, I've heard you speak many a times when you speak very well, and you truly do inspire a number of us clinicians. So that's great. One of the roles that you have played has been to fix or to plug the loophole in dental education, which is lack of business training.
Yeah.
Which is truly a massive deficit in the training, because a dentist qualifies and from day one he's a businessman, or theoretically a businessman, and he has no clue because no light has been shed
Yeah.
on that aspect of the business at all. So I know you help management side of the business as well, but if you don't mind, to start off with, let me ask you a couple of little questions, mainly on the dental side of things. So what I would love you to tell us, if that's possible, Chris, is one tip for 3 or 4 different phases of a dentist journey through his professional life. So in other words, a tip for a newly qualified dentist, a tip for somebody who is qualified probably 3 to 5 years, maybe up to 10 years, wants to set up a dental practice.
Yeah.
A tip for somebody who has taken the practice as far as he could and hit in your own terms, a glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And doesn't know where to go from there. And one of the things that hopefully I would be facing in the not too distant future, maybe within the next decade, is what is my exit. So if that's okay with you, because we like these interviews to be quite short and catchy and things that they have like a take-home message. So a tip each for this different phases, for you to sort of help, really.
You bet. All right. Well, isn't that interesting? It's like we're doing the whole life of a dentist, all in one go. So let's start at the beginning of the journey, and let's talk about that recently qualified dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, it may be somebody who has recently graduated, or it may be somebody who has recently completed their foundation training. So they've got rid of their L plates and they're now out there driving, and they're looking at the world around them. And it's really interesting. A lot of those people will walk up to people like me at trade shows and conferences and just kind of bounce ideas around. I'll tell you, before I answered the question, which is what's the key point, I did a really interesting thing recently, which is I ran a Google Analytics report to figure out who was following me around. In other words, who was visiting the website and who was following me around on social media. I have a blog 5 days a week. I have a newsletter once a month. Who's reading it? And we had a big surprise, because what we thought, well, thank you, Joe, I know you're in there. But my assumption, I'm a 64-year-old guy who's been around in business 47 years in work this year, and it's very easy to assume that we're all kind of hanging out in the same demographic. And all of a sudden I realised that actually if you look at the demographic of the people who follow me around, the demographic hump was around about age 25 to 35.
Okay.
I didn't realise how young my audience was. And then I got to thinking about it and thought, well, why are those people reading what I've got to say? And of course the answer suddenly becomes obvious, which is that when you're recently qualified, late 20s, early 30s, you're a sponge for knowledge.
Correct.
And this brings me to, I suppose, my tip. I'm going to use a quotation from Sir Isaac Newton, who many people regard as the greatest scientist or one of the greatest scientists who ever lived. And he famously said, if I have been able to see far, it was because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And what Newton was saying was that he was carrying on the work of the great mathematicians, the great scientists, in his case the great alchemists and the great philosophers who had gone before him. And let's use a Star Wars analogy. It's almost like every Luke Skywalker needs an Obi-Wan Kenobi and a Yoda somewhere in the mix in order to learn the ways of the Jedi. So here's my biggest tip for the recently qualified dentist, which is to build yourself a team of Jedi Knights, build yourself a team of Obi-Wans and Yodas, and there will of course be a clinical team. There will be clinical giants that you will look up to. But think about the business sector. If you have any aspirations to go into business, then begin to look for those business mentors, those business Jedis that you can surround yourself with. And there's a whole bunch of those people within global dentistry. You know, people, fortunately, after all these years, people like me and Ashley and others in the UK, but also incredible gurus in business around the world. But I would also say broaden your horizons and look at people like Seth Godin, who writes the world's most popular blog on marketing, and look at people like Stephen Covey and Robert Kiyosaki and others out there who have written, you know, Michael Gerber from the E-Myth, who have written seminal works on business development, and make sure that you follow those people. So the tip, to underline the tip, is surround yourself with giants, sit on their shoulders and learn from their experiences.
That's a fantastic expert. So a fantastic tip. So for the new graduates, for the ones who are just taking off in career, I think the Jedi things that you were talking about, surround yourself with giants, not just in the business sector, but also try and identify which clinical strengths that you actually enjoy the most. Because if you start enjoying clinical dentistry, you'll enjoy that aspect of it, and therefore you'll enjoy the business side of things. You know, you'll want to grow both intellectually and financially.
Yeah.
So
you know what? I'm going to sound very old-fashioned, but you know, speaking to the audience here, which is that when I was a lad, when you and I were lads, if somebody had set that as a task for you, frankly, you had to go to a library in order to try to discover that information. Whereas now you can do this from home, you can do this on your smartphone, on a tablet, on a desktop. You've got this, I mean, what an incredible world we live in, that so many younger people perhaps take for granted, that you've got access to all of that material online if you're just prepared to invest a little bit of time in taking the time out to do the research and find out where these people are.
And I also wonder if the Google reviews that you did of the audience that who follow you now, it wouldn't surprise me if you looked at the same statistics from 15 years ago, it would have been different. I think people are becoming much more business savvy earlier in life now compared to 15 years ago. So I have a feeling 15 years ago, people have been in the 40s and 50s, the glass ceiling ones would have probably, you know, come and seen you much more compared to the newer generation. That is a fantastic tip. That is Chris Barrow talking to us regarding a tip for the newly qualified dentist. You are watching Jobat TV, and stay tuned for the second aspect of Chris's interview, where he'll be talking about people who are just about to set up, i.e. people who are probably 5 to 10 years qualified. Maybe I'm being generalizing a bit there. For that group of people who want to then take their life, i.e. business and profession, to the next level. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Jobat, and thank you for watching my channel. For more interviews with dentists, amazing implant surgeons, business leaders, entrepreneurs, people who think outside the box and create paradigm shifts in which the way we think, follow me on Jobat TV. I look forward to seeing you then.